This is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time! Presenting the champion of the world, Hill! WamBam Ben Amino!
Yo, 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 it's your boy, and it's WamBam Wednesday, and we're here today. And guess what? We're in Florida, hot Florida. That's right. We're here in Destin, Florida, and we are at the Henderson Beach Resort, and I'm telling you, it is gorgeous. So if you haven't ever been here, make sure you stop out at Henderson Park Beach Resort in Destin, Florida. And guess what? This is a show about ordinary people doing extraordinary things, and today we got a good one for you right here, living down here in Destin. Shh, don't tell nobody where he lives, okay? But you're about to meet the famous Nick White. This man was a Marine. He was Special Forces. He designed and started Off Leash K9, which has over 145 locations. He's an unbelievable entrepreneur, and guess what? You may have seen him on TV as the host of America's Top Dog. America's Top Dog was a big, big TV show. And he's also very, very well known working with all celebrities in the dog training world. And you know what? I think he might be coming in right now. There he is. Nick, what's going on, buddy?
What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. We're so excited about this episode, man.
Happy to be here.
Thanks, man. You're such a great inspiration. I want to just really start right off. First of all, say thank you for your service, man. Thanks for being there. You're a Marine and stuff, and I know you did some special force stuff. Tell us a little bit about that first.
My background, I grew up in a small town in the middle of Ohio, typical cornfield town. Literally 6 days after I graduated high school, I found myself at Parris Island, South Carolina, literally less than a week after I graduated high school, and did boot camp at Parris Island for the U.S. Marine Corps. And then I ended up getting stationed out at Camp Pendleton, California, where I was a Marine Corps infantryman.
Now, was that something you always wanted to do, or was this kind of something that just happened?
No, to be honest, I wouldn't say I always wanted to do it. I would say that probably started around like 15 is when, I would see the commercials. I would see the Marines in the dress blues and, doing blowing stuff up and shooting guns. And of course, growing up in Ohio, that's kind of what you do in Ohio, shoot guns.
There's not a whole lot you can do. And the Ohio Buckeyes, right?
Yeah, no, that's the pride of the state right there, because then we're left with the Bengals and the Browns. So the Buckeyes is kind of where it's at for us. So I'd say around 14, 15 is when I really started like setting my sights on that path that I wanted to join the Marines right after I graduated high school. And of course, my parents were pretty against it at that.
Sure. I think as parents, most parents, out of worriness, I'm sure.
Correct. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah. They were just like, my brother was an Ohio State trooper. My dad was a cop there. So they're like, why can't you just do the family thing and, be a cop and be a state trooper? Why do you got to ship off and leave us and join the Marines? And so that's what I did. And it's ultimately served me very well in life.
So then you went from there to what, Secret Services?
Yeah, so then I went to outside of the Marines. I got back. I actually spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. The last 7 of those months I spent in Fallujah, Iraq during the whole 2004-2005 Iraq War.
Wow.
I got back from Fallujah in March of 2004, and then departed the Marines in June, just shortly after that. March of 2005, and then got hired by the Secret Service kind of shortly after that.
Now, that's kind of cool, man. Being in the Secret Service, that's an elite crowd right there. Like, not everybody gets to do that.
There's about 3,300 last I looked or checked Secret Service in the entire world. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's the Marines, I think, is about 200,000, and the Secret Service is about 3,300. So it's even much more specialized. And there are a lot of great experiences in there. You go through 6 months of training to get hired by the Secret Service. It's about an 18-month long hiring process to even get hired, to go through all the steps and the interviews and the polygraphs and medical, physical, all the things they put you through, board panel interviews. I mean, it's kind of it's a rough process to say the least to even get hired. But rightfully so. If you think about it, you know, it's
It is a Secret Service.
yeah, you're carrying a gun next to the president of the United States, so they kind of need to know that you have a little bit of stability to you. So-
Absolutely, absolutely. What was that like? Now, did you enjoy that? Was that did you see any problems? Did you go through any experiences that I don't know if you can talk about them or not, but I'm going to ask you anyways. You know?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the Secret Service, I would say, and the way I do tell people is I say joining the U.S. Secret Service or getting hired by the Secret Service was probably one of the best experiences of my life. And the thing I like to joke but kind of serious and say is going into the Secret Service or getting hired by the Secret Service was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And leaving the Secret Service is the best decision I ever made.
Really?
So ultimately it was a great experience. I'd highly recommend anyone. For me, it was a great kind of segue, where I learned a lot. I mean, you get a lot of leadership. You travel the world. I was 24 years old in the Secret Service, making $100,000 a year, which for that time as a 24-year-old,
right, it's a lot.
I'm on top of the world, and you're traveling a lot. But then the thing we joke about kind of in the Secret Service, I'll kind of air some of their dirty laundry out here, just for this podcast.
Awesome.
But they give you too much of what you want is kind of what I would say is kind of the general consensus. So they're like, oh, you like money, you like overtime, you want to make more money. All right, well, cool. We're going to give you more overtime than you want. The standard kind of practice, in America is a 40-hour work week. I would say in the Secret Service, a standard average is about a 60 to 70-hour work week. And that's when you're at the White House. Like when outside of traveling, I started on Vice-President Cheney's detail.
Nice.
Because I was in kind of at an interesting point in the Secret Service. I was in the Secret Service from 2007 to 2011. So by the time I finished our 6 months of training, I got assigned to the Vice-President Cheney's residence. And then shortly after that, about 5 months later, it was the 2008 campaign, which for those that aren't aware is the busiest, most high-profile campaign in U.S. history. We had Obama, we had Hillary Clinton, we had John McCain. So we have all these high-level people vying for the presidency. And so I was fortunate/unfortunate enough to be in the Secret Service right at the start of the 2008 campaign, which means you're traveling nonstop. You're hopping city to city. All right, you're in Chicago with Obama for 3 days. All right, pack up. Now you're leaving that hotel and we're flying you to LA because McCain's giving a speech. Now you're leaving LA and you're flying to Delaware because Obama's giving, and that's just your life you live for 6 to 8 months. And what I tell people, that a lot of people, this kind of one of the, not a secret, but kind of an insider thing, is during a campaign, especially one like that's the biggest one ever, the number of people we protect now triples, because we go from protecting the first family and the second family to now the first family, the second family, Obama and his family, Senator McCain and his family, Hillary Clinton and her family. Yeah. And Hillary, they already had Secret Service protection because Bill was a former president and former presidents get protection for life.
Right.
Well, that's an interesting thing in itself, but we'll circle back to that.
Yeah.
But so the way I like to tell people is, the number of people we protect in the Secret Service tripled, but guess what? The number of people in the Secret Service stays exactly the same. So what's that tell you? Right. That means we're working triple, we're traveling triple, we're putting in triple overtime. I mean,
you're earning your money.
Yeah, I think it was 78 days, like without a single day off during that time. And that wasn't even the worst. There was guys that went, half the year literally without a day off. And people say, well, why don't they just hire more people for this time frame? And it's like, well, the campaign is very short. And as I just said, the Secret Service hiring process is 18 months. Then the training is 6 months. So you're about 2 years in to take a guy from nothing to he's operationally ready. And it just doesn't make sense to say, hey, we have a campaign coming up for the next 9 months. Let's hire a bunch of people that takes 2 years just for this isolated incident. So they find that the path of least resistance is just making the current people in the Secret Service work 3 times more versus hiring 3 times more people for this short stint, essentially. So that's what happened.
You know what is it like though? I'm sure some of the viewers want to know, and I kind of want to know. You know, when you're dealing with somebody that's at that high level and stuff, do you ever really get to connect or speak with them, or do they ever try to speak to you and introduce themselves, and you introduce yourself, or are you just another person? You're just another army to them.
Yeah. So that. Oddly enough, I would say that is a question your viewers would want to know, because that's one of the questions I've gotten the most since when I talk to people about being in the Secret Service. And I was only in the Secret Service for 4 years. So it's kind of, it works based off seniority, kind of like anything. So when you watch movies, like, White House Fallen or whatever the most recent movie is, you see the Secret Service guy in the helicopter, HMX-1, or in the back of the limo, like, oh, hey, how you doing, Nick? The president's talking to him. So that's like what we call like our SAC or ADSAC, like special agent in charge. Those are like the top guys in the Secret Service detail who oversee the entire president's detail. They have that relationship with the president. Like, they're in the limo with him. They're in HMX. They're on Air Force One with him. I was never in HMX-1. I was never in the president's limo with him. I was never in HMX, which is the Marine Corps helicopter that flies them around. So unless you have a lot of seniority, you're really not having that, like, that dialogue. And we'll get into that in a second. I would say it's like if you work at Tesla. Right. Like, Elon isn't
out there talking to everybody.
Coming down to the factory line. Your job's putting bolts on the tires, saying, oh, hey, Phil, how's the wife? How's the kids? How's the family? Like,
right, when it's that big.
Exactly. So unless you're at a high level in the Secret Service on the president's detail, you're generally not having that interaction with them. However, you still do have interaction with them to kind of bring it full circle. Is, for example, I would have a post in the West Wing right outside the Oval Office, and that post just rotates. So President Obama would be walking in, hey, good morning, sir, and good morning, and he goes in. So you'll have little, like, petty dialogues or interactions. My most notable one that stuck out to me is I was standing post. I was on midnights at the South Lawn of the White House when President Bush was president, and he had his dog Barney back then. Oh yeah. And he came out, I don't know, it was 11 midnight, something like that, and I'm just standing post on the south grounds, and he just came and let out Barney, and Barney's just running around the yard waiting to use the restroom.
What kind of dog is it?
I forget what he is. He's a little black, maybe a miniature schnauzer.
Okay.
I forget now what he is. And I had like probably a solid like 3 to 4 minute like conversation with about that. George W. And I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And he was the nicest guy ever. And, I was like, oh, where are you from? I was like, oh, I'm from Ohio, sir. Oh, what'd you do before? Oh, I was in the Marines. Oh, thank you so much for your service. And then we started talking about Iraq a little bit. And so it was just a really cool interaction. But it was like a 3 to 4 minute thing, but it kind of made my night. So.
Right. Well, I can only imagine. Now, you mentioned seeing his dog and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is this when you got into the dog world? Like, I got to ask, because, for the viewers that don't know, I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You opened up one of the best and largest dog training facilities, for people and stuff, Off Leash K9.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, you have like 145 locations
145,
now?
correct.
Great. And growing still.
And growing.
And stuff. So tell me a little bit about that. How'd you get into the dogs?
Yeah, so while I was in the Secret Service...
I mean, it goes really hand in hand, right? Secret Service...
kind of. Well, I would even say it goes before the Secret Service.
Okay.
It goes back to my childhood, really. And when I was probably maybe 13, 14, my parents got us a dog. And like I said, my dad was law enforcement. His name was Deputy. And I would come home from school.
That's a cool name.
Exactly.
That's just a cool name, Deputy. If I was a dog, I would be called Deputy too.
Deputy.
That's cool. It's just a cool name.
He's like a German Shepherd. And when I would come home from school, usually my brother worked after school because he was 2 years older than me. And my parents didn't get home from school till like a couple hours after. So I was just get home from school. I'm home by myself. And I love Deputy. So my mom would buy like those big bags of treats. And I would just start like teaching him stuff to see all what I could, because I just really enjoyed him. I thought it was fun. And I remember it's still funny this day. And I still will talk to my mom about it. My mom used to get so mad because she would come home and the entire bag of treats, like, you know, like 250 is in there, would be gone. And she's like, I literally just bought those yesterday. But I'm just like
Gave them all away.
Yeah, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was trying to, and I taught him a good amount. Like, he played dead, he sat, he shook, he did all the like the novel things, but I didn't know what I was doing. But weirdly, I was kind of using him to kind of learn and kind of dial it in, and going through just bags of treats that my mom was would buy. So really, to me, I think that's where it really started, is I enjoyed it then, and I was a kid who was home alone, you know, which is like every kid's dream. And I was spending my time like in the garage. I still can picture it, teaching him.
What kind of kid were you? Were you a good kid, or were you kind of a troubled kid? What kind of kid were you?
Yeah, I think my parents would even agree I was a good kid. Me and my brother both were. I mean, my brother's an Ohio State trooper who's weirdly enough on the K9 unit in the Ohio State Troopers as well. So I don't know if it's a family genetic thing or what, but but yeah, we were good kids. But my dad ran a very tight ship. Like I said, he was law enforcement. So we didn't grow up like in the 2023 parenting style. You know, like we weren't abused, but when we messed up, we knew it.
Right.
You know.
Right. I hear you.
I have great parents. Literally, my parents still to this day, we're very close. I have incredible parents. I'm very fortunate, but they held us extremely accountable for our bad decision making. I'll take that for what it's worth. But
so you're giving away all these dog treats, and in the process, you don't even realize, but you're actually learning a trait.
Exactly.
You know, and it's funny because, you know, you're walking down the road now, and as successful as you've been, you know, people are like, you know, what do you do for a living? And you're like, I'm a dog trainer. Yeah. You know, and stuff. And, you know, tell us a little about that and what that really means to you when you say that. I'm a dog trainer.
It's funny. It depends on what mood I'm in, what I tell them I do. You know, if I have some time to talk, I'll say I'm a dog trainer. If I just kind of want to hurry up and move on, I'll say like, oh, I do real estate. And just because it's funny, anytime you tell someone, well, not everyone, but it's like 1 out of 4 American households, I think, has dogs, one or multiple. So the chance of someone coming up to you, you know, it's a 25% chance that they have a dog off the top. So in my experience,
that's an interesting statistic. I didn't know that. Yeah,
a lot.
Yeah.
So in my experience, as soon as someone says, "Oh, what do you do?" and you say, "Are you a dog trainer?" I've learned I need to have like some time to talk, because the stereotypical response that I'm expecting is saying, "Oh my gosh, I have a dog. He's a year old. Like, oh, like." You know, one of the things he does, and then they start telling me their dog's issues and want to know how to fix them, like on the spot.
Right.
So that's why I said, like, it depends. Like, I've even I'll admit this, sadly, is I've been wearing like my Off Leash K9 shirt. Like, say I'm at a Chick-fil-A and someone's like, "Oh, do you train dogs?" I'm wearing this like line of like 10 people, so I know like it's gonna be a while. I'm like, "Oh no, this is my friend's like shirt." I'm just sorry guys, but that's generally what I expect is when I say I'm a dog trainer, someone's gonna tell me about their dog, or like, "Oh, my boyfriend has a dog, or my girlfriend has a dog, and he's out of control. He always does this. Like, what can I do?" Like, everyone like wants like instant fix, like instant feedback on how to fix their issue, and that's why a lot of the times I kind of avoid it. Again, depends on how much time I have, but then B, you just can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. It's like if I'm a therapist and we're in line at Chick-fil-A and you're like, "Oh, I have all kinds of messed up issues. Like, what can you tell me to like get my life on track?"
Right.
Yeah, it's like so you can't do that with dogs either. So I'll give some tips or advice, but
here's a card. Here's a card.
But
it's
not enough. Yeah, it's just not enough. I can say, "Oh, here's a couple things you can try when you get home," but ultimately, like a therapist or any profession, you need some time and effort and work. There's no one single thing I can tell you that now you're going to go home and all of a sudden your dog is no longer aggressive or your dog no longer has anxiety. Or so, yeah, I'll say, "Oh, here's a couple things you can start trying, but where do you live? Oh, that's awesome. We actually have a location in Atlanta. If you just look up Off Leash K9, you know," and then I'll give them that spiel.
So when did you know that, hey, this is something that I'm going to do and I'm going to create? Like, you obviously put together a system that's obviously, you know, really, really, works really well for you. But what made you, like, what got you to that point to say, hey, you know what? Okay. You clearly obviously train dogs, because we're going to talk a little bit later about your celebrity training. That's all you do now, is dealing with celebrities and big people and dogs. But you obviously had to learn it along the way. So how hard and how difficult was that to get to a place where not only are you good at what you do, but now you can also teach others to do the same?
Yeah, so man, I would say it's still an ongoing process. You know, it's like I always say, every new dog will teach you something new. Sometimes it's just more patience. Sometimes, you know, sometimes it's better delivery. You know, but you know, I would say it's kind of like anything. I wouldn't say there's always something to be learned. So it's still kind of a growth process. Like I still add stuff to my company all the time. Like, hey guys, here's a new trick that you can do to help dog. If you're having issues with the dog, try this trick. And maybe it's a trick another trainer told me, so it's kind of an ongoing process. To really, I don't think you can ever say like I know everything. You know what I mean? Really in any field. So it's just a constant evolving process. But I really kind of knew I was onto something. Really, when I started, this was 2000. I started my business in 2010. So in 2010. I started doing dog training and showcasing the videos on like YouTube, and I don't even know if Facebook was around then. I knew I was putting them on YouTube, but I was doing kind of bigger things than what most people was doing, more impressive things like high level distractions and obedience from a distance, but I was packaging it in a really nice video. And at that time, most people just wasn't doing that. So that's kind of what really started putting me on the map, is showcasing dogs doing incredible things and like high level settings, like tons of distractions, 200 yards away, versus everyone else was kind of doing the like, oh, here's a dog in my backyard, you know, and I'm showing some of the stuff I taught him, like other trainers. So that's what really started kind of getting me attention, is doing what everyone else was doing, but in a very high level, impressive fashion, essentially.
Nice. And we want to thank our sponsors right now, Cost Plus Processing, the leader in merchant processing. If you are a merchant and you're out there taking credit cards and you're still paying card fees, call 1-855-391-9190. That's 1-855-391-9190. And remember, ask them why they are the future of merchant processing. So we're back into the show here, and we're here with our finest Nick White. And you know what? You know, you're talking about how you're putting out videos and stuff on YouTube and the different techniques and stuff doing with dogs. I remember finding you. There was a video, I think it went viral, about you had a dog that was sitting there, and there was like a pizza box and a donut box and all this food laid out in front of him. And he just stood there, man. You walked out the door and you went down the road and had the door wide open, and he never took a bite of anything. How do you get a dog to do that?
So that, interestingly enough, I know the exact video you're talking about, and that was actually Ryan Reynolds' dogs, actor Ryan Reynolds. And yeah, I have the pizza boxes. I open the door, I literally drive away, like drive down the street, leave the door open, the pizza's still out, and the dog just stays there. So that's what I mean. That's kind of what I was talking about. As you said, the video you saw of me, that's what started putting me on the map, is just doing unorthodox, wild, crazy things like that with dogs, that at the time no one else was doing things like that. They would say like, oh, leave it, and drop a treat, right? And then good boy, and then the dog would eat it. Where I'm like buying like 4 Little Caesars pizzas, setting them around the dog, literally opening the door, leaving the door open, driving a mile down the road, and like videoing all of that, just crazy things. And that's what really kind of started getting me attention and kind of got the ball rolling. Really. Right.
And the rest is history, as we say, as you continue to grow. Now, let me ask you real quick. Can every dog be trained?
Yes.
So there's no dog out there, not even, you know, my buddy's got a dog. He's got a Doberman. And let me tell you what, he renamed him A-hole. You know what I'm saying? That's how bad he is and stuff. And I try to explain to him that every dog can be trained.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter the situation, doesn't matter the breed.
Nope.
Is there one breed that's harder to train than another?
Yeah, I mean, there's stereotypical, and that's why I say stereotypical. I always make sure I'm very clear about that. Is there's definitely stereotypical breeds that are more difficult. Like a lot of the Asian breeds in general, I find like they wouldn't be my first choice to work with, like Akitas, Jindos, Shiba Inu.
I had an Akita, man.
And like all of those Asian breeds, they're very cat-like, a lot of them. And that's why I said, just to clarify, stereotypically, because I always say one of my things I tell people a lot when we start talking about dogs is you have to look at breeds of dogs like races of people. Is you can say in general this breed but then you'll find an Akita who's happy-go-lucky and is fast learning, and so there's always exceptions. There's no bad breed, just like there's no bad race of people or no bad any generalization. You can make generalizations, but there's always exceptions to the rule, So definitely breeds are the same way. And even German Shepherds, I find German Shepherds are kind of a hit or miss these days. I feel like because they're overbred, everyone's breeding. Is that
more of the canine force? They use more German Shepherds and
generally for like military and law enforcement now, they're using a lot of Belgian Malinois, which is the dog that I had, the Malinois. And they're kind of starting to phase out, in my opinion, kind of the German Shepherds just because they're bigger. So that's one of the reasons. So now, like when these special operations teams, like the SEAL teams or, MARSOC or SWAT, Nashville SWAT, or the list keeps going, they don't want 100-pound German Shepherd to like carry over a wall to do a raid in Afghanistan.
Oh, that totally makes sense. I never really
They
looked
want
about that.
a 70-pound Malinois that they can literally pick up, throw over the wall. He takes off running. So they're more portable. They're easy. They're lighter, so they're easier for a handler to deal with. Malinois have shorter hair versus German Shepherds are longer hair, so generally they don't get as hot as easy, so they can run faster, run further, not get overheated as much. I would say all around.
There's some strategy to that then.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I would say all around, people are going to hate me, but I would say all around kind of a better dog, a little bit more dialed in. But then they're Malinois, so they're nuts. They're super high energy, super high drive, where German Shepherds, I feel like, are a little more chill and stable. So, those trade-offs.
What's your favorite dog?
If I had to work with one dog for the rest of my life, man, to be honest, I'd probably, people are shocked, and keep in mind, I've trained every dog there is, literally every breed there is in the world, I feel like, and I would probably say a pit bull.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like pits.
That's your favorite.
They just have a bad stereotype associated with them, but super great dogs, super smart, high energy, fun. Generally, I find like some of my favorite dogs I've trained have been pit bulls. And to the flip side, the less masculine dogs, that'd be like the masculine dog I would have to choose if I had to train a dog. The flip side to that is I would probably say like a King Charles Cavalier.
Oh, yeah.
Or like the more, they're great dogs. Like I trained Scott Eastwood's son, and love that dog. I was like, hey, if you ever get too busy, let me know, and I'll keep her if you don't want her.
Let's go into this for a little bit, because you know what? You have done a lot of celebrities and work with their dogs. I know you did the GOAT of the UFC, man, Jon Jones Bones, man. He's I'm a big fan of him, obviously, and stuff. And you're flying out there working with him. I know you've worked with Jeff Ross, and some great. Didn't you do like the Prince? And you did some cool stuff. Tell us a little bit about that, man. What that was like and experiences when you first went. I mean, who was the first real celebrity that you walked into their home and like, wow?
Interestingly enough, the first big name I ever did was 10 years ago, and it was Jon Jones.
Was it?
Yeah, he was the first, and now I've trained two of his dogs, because the first one was 10 years ago, and the second one was probably a year and a half, 2 years ago.
All right. Big shout out to Big John. If you're listening, man, we're pulling for you this year. We're pulling for you there, man, at Madison Square Garden, baby.
Good. He's became a really good friend of mine. I speak to John pretty regularly. Great guy. Love him. He's always just a really, really good guy. I can't say enough great things about him.
He's from my hometown, upstate New York, man. He's from up there.
Ithaca, New York, right?
There. Yeah. He was from in the Rochester area, up in that way.
But so John, I really got to give John a shout out, because he's really who kind of got that ball rolling for me. So one of my best friends is his coach named Greg Jackson.
Yeah.
He goes to Jackson MMA, MMA. And so Greg was like,
huge
hey,
fan of Greg,
I have a good friend of mine. He does this dog training stuff. John just got a dog, a Rottweiler named BJ. And that's how that started. But because of John, and John did a great testimonial, and he's always been great to me. Love that man.
Yeah.
And because of that, then I got like Henner Gracie. who also has now become an incredible friend of mine.
Right.
He's like, oh, I saw you did Jon Jones' dog. So now you have Jon Jones and Henner Gracie. And then it was Dan Henderson, if you remember him.
Yeah. I played cards with Dan.
Yeah, great.
I love
Another
Dan.
great guy.
Yeah, that's old school UFC basketball when the UFC was getting started.
Savage.
Yes, they were savage. Oh my God, yes.
And then it just kept going from there. And then because of Henner, I got Lyoto Machida because he is Lyoto's jiu-jitsu instructor. And then I got Chris Cyborg. And then I got Rashad Evans. And then now I have all these starting to stack up and all of them Instagramming and tweeting, hey, check out Nick White off leash. He trained my dog.
The power of social media, man.
Really?
Power.
Yeah, it has a lot of pros and a lot of cons, just like the internet.
Yeah, that's right. That is true. That is true.
So that's what really started. Now that I had all these fighters, now it's like, oh, now he's done all these big athletes dogs. And then it was like John Wall and then Max Scherzer, a 3-time Cy Young winner, MLB All-Star. I mean, just won the World Series. And then I got him. And then I started getting more baseball players because of Max. And then it just
spiraled.
Yeah, it just kept going. It became a snowball effect that it's like once you got that initial foot of trust in the door, then it's like, all right, well, if all these people trust you with their dog, who am I not to? And then they sign, and then it just kept going.
So I got to ask you though, now working with all the fighters and stuff, did you ever like tie up with Jon Jones, maybe just kind of lock it up a little bit, doing a little, because I know you do some jiu-jitsu yourself, you know, and stuff. What's that like, you know, locking up with the champ?
Anytime I go to Albuquerque, I always go in Jon's garage, literally every time, and me and Jon roll. And I have videos on my phone.
Nuts.
I'll show them to you.
You're nuts.
Yeah.
You're nuts to be rolling with him. I bet you he tosses you around like a doll.
I'm like a kid to him. You know, I'm 160.
Yeah.
You know, now Jon's walking around, you know, probably 230.
Yeah, he's a heavyweight. He's going heavyweight.
So yeah, he very kid gloves it with me. You know,
kid gloves. I love that.
He doesn't let me like crush him, but he doesn't crush me. So he keeps it. He does what all really good jiu-jitsu practitioners do, and he tries to roll at a comparable level. Because he's like,
that's a finesse, man.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm 100 pounds, you know, 80 pounds bigger than you.
That's respect. That's respect.
So yeah, he kid gloves it and keeps it very respectful, or he could just obviously crush me. Right. So, but I do a lot of jiu-jitsu now. I mean, I train 6 to 8 hours a week on average. Like I just did jiu-jitsu this morning.
Nice. That's good stuff. Now listen, so obviously being that you're working with a lot of celebrities and stuff, your name's getting out there and stuff. They have this show on TV that I know you hosted, America's Top Dog.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that. What was that like getting that call? And now all of a sudden, you know, you're the host.
Correct.
Yeah.
So America's Top Dog, for those that aren't familiar, it's from the producers of Live PD and from the producers of American Ninja Warrior. So what they did is they literally combined them, essentially. They took the Live PD police officers concept, American Ninja Warrior, running obstacles, and combined them. So now it's police officers and their canine partners running kind of a Ninja Warrior style obstacle course.
Right.
So they initially emailed me, and keep in mind, I've been down this road a handful of times. I literally got an Instagram message this morning from someone saying, hey, we'd love to chat with you about a possible show we have coming up. Oh. So I've been down this road a good amount, and this was the first one that actually came to fruition. You know, everyone has a lot of good ideas. Very few people actually execute on them. But that's a good quote.
Yeah.
But
so 100%. 100%.
So they emailed, said, hey, we have the show. We know you're a big name in dog training. We're looking for a host. Would you be interested? I'm like, of course I would be. So what they did is, because the canine industry is kind of like a lot of industries, is it seems big, but when you're in it, it's very small, right? So I know all the best dog trainers in the world, friends with many of them. And so they were actually doing this to not a lot, but I'd probably say like 10, like reach out to like 10 notable trainers with the same spiel. And they did Zoom interviews with all of us, like independently. Like I was one, then another guy's one. And I didn't know this at the time, but
you were prettier. That's just say it. You were prettier.
So, I don't know what it is. Probably my charisma and charm, but no. So then it's kind of like you work your way up the ladder. So I did an interview with like probably the showrunner or someone kind of at the bottom. And then they really liked me. So they're like, all right, we want you to meet with like the assistant executive producer. And then I did another, and they're just asking questions like, what would you do? Here's a situation about a dog. Boom, what's your answer? And I'm just
it's an interview.
Like this,
it's
like a podcast,
interview.
really.
Yeah,
I'm just answering their stuff. And then I worked my way up to like the producer of the show is like, this is the final step. You're at and if the producer likes you, you're in. If he doesn't like you, you're out. But to be honest, I put no relevance to any of that. I'm like, I'm just going to be me. If they like me, they like me.
Right.
And if they don't like me, they don't like me.
Right.
So I'm not going to change who I am, to support who you want me to be.
You never should change who you are. And you know what? That's what's made you successful. I mean, think about it. I mean, think about all the things that you've done in your life, whether it was being in the Marines, whether it was being in the Secret Service, whether it was owning, your own dog, training facility, going into TV and stuff. Like you did everything great.
Thank you.
And I got my hat's off to you because you are very disciplined and you follow a course of life. Like you learn, you read, you take knowledge,
every day.
Every single day. You're always, chiming in with new ideas and new thoughts and stuff. And you actually practice what you preach.
Thank you.
And a lot of people don't do that today. They can talk the talk, but they don't want to walk the walk.
Like I said, everyone has good ideas. Very few execute on them. And to sidetrack, because I think that's an important thing that I always, anytime I talk to people, I always impress that upon them. To backtrack really fast, and then we'll get back to America's Top Dog, is when I went to join the Marines from a small town in Ohio, my mom, my dad, my brother, every friend, literally there wasn't a single person that supported me and said, hey, this is a great idea. You're going to become better because of this. You're going to become more disciplined. You're going to get in better. Like I literally didn't have one person that supported that decision.
Nobody wants you to succeed.
So I joined the Marines against everyone's advice. And I do 4 years. I'm successful. I did great in the Marines. I got out as a sergeant. I got a lot of rewards, meritoriously promoted. So I did extremely well in the Marines. And then I tell my mom and my family and everyone, like, hey, I'm going to get out of the Marines. I'm going to and then those same people are like, why are you getting out? You can be retired in 20 years. You're doing great. Da, da, da. You're stupid if you leave. Da, da, da. So I didn't listen to anyone. Mm-hmm. And again, my parents are incredible parents. I always point that out. They're average parents, though. They're like, you are doing well. Like, don't take a risk.
Right.
Don't change your life. And what if it doesn't go as well? What if they see all the bad? What if you're doing well? Why would you change that? So then I don't listen to anyone once more in my life. And I get hired by the Secret Service, making $100,000 a year, traveling the world with the president, all dressed up, photos in front of HMX, the whole nine. And then I tell my parents one day,
I'm not going to do it no more.
Hey, I'm going to quit the Secret Service. And they're like,
what?
You are an idiot.
Right.
Like, you fought for 2 years to get in. There's only 3,300 of you in the world. You're making great money for your age, great government benefits, right? The whole nine. And they're like, well, what are you going to do? Like, what other job are you going to? I'm like, well, I'm quitting the Secret Service so I can start a dog training business. And they're like, about to lose their mind now. And everyone
Right.
in the Secret, I'll never forget. I'll never forget you guys. But everyone in the Secret Service is like, you're an idiot. You're stupid. You're quitting $100,000 a year government job, full benefits. Keep in mind too, I have 4 years Marines, 4 years Secret Service. So I have 8 years towards a 20-year government retirement at this point. Everyone in the Secret Service kind of literally like making fun of me, laughing at me like, oh, we'll see you back in a year. Literally, I heard that so many times.
Right.
We'll see you back in a year.
Right.
And I quit, and I was training dogs at elementary school playground on the weekends at this point. Like I didn't have any big facility. I didn't have 50 trainers. It was me.
Right.
And so literally every step of my way to the point that I'm at today has told me I was stupid. Like, you're making a bad decision. Why are you doing that? And I just always listened to myself and said, I know I'm going to make this work. And what I tell people is the sad and unfortunate thing, Phil, is so many people listen to those people. You know what I mean? Like so many people listen to that parent that says, what are you're going to go be an artist? Like, that's stupid. You need to get a job. You need to work at the bank. You need to follow in your father's footsteps and be an Ohio State trooper and make good money and retire in 20 years like your dad did. And
100%.
So many people listen to those people.
Man, I'll tell you,
that's a tragedy.
It is. And, it kind of follows a little bit of my life as well. I mean, I was a school teacher up in New York and making good money at the time. And I decided after rookie of the year, the first year, teacher of the year, second year, I was going to retire from teaching. I wanted more. I'm going to pack up, move to Georgia. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yep.
It was the best decision of my life.
Same.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure, you're saying where you're at today. I mean, come on. Was it a good decision, Nick?
It's worked out.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well.
And my life has worked out I would say solely because I didn't listen to any of those people. If I listened to any of those people at any step in the way, I would have never joined the Marines. If I listened to everyone, but don't join the Marines, which means I'd have never gotten the Secret Service because now I don't have that military background.
Right.
Which means I wouldn't have got into dogs. Or if I joined the Marines and got hired by the Secret Service, now all those people said, why are you leaving? Stay in the Secret Service. You're making good money. You have a good retirement. You have good medical, dental. You have a parking spot at the White House. Like, why would you give that up? I wouldn't be so literally I am where I am today, literally based off not listening to the opinions of other people and following what I thought was the best thing.
Well, I think in the end, and I want the listeners to know this, is you are you, and you have to become you. When you ask for other people to give you the answers and what to do and what way to go, you don't become you anymore.
Yep.
You don't even know who you are.
Correct.
You know, you start riding these roads, these paths that other people are paving for you, and you're like, this ain't even really where I want to go or what I want to do.
Correct.
So in order for you to do it, listen to others, meaning take some advice of how to do certain things, but do what you want to do.
Correct.
Because in the end, it's your life. It's your story. It's your book.
Exactly.
And it's got to end the way you want it to.
Yeah,
which is
control the
important.
narrative.
Exactly.
Control the narrative, and your story's still being written. People's like, I wish, now that I'm 50, I don't know why I did the old guy voice.
That was pretty good.
I'm 40, so I'm not that far away. But I'm like, I wish when I was your age. She's like 51. But I talked to so many people.
Hey, just remember, it's okay to be 50. I'm just saying,
I'll be there in a
older
decade.
as I am.
But I hear so many people say, I wish when I'd have done something like that, when I was your. I'm like, bro, you're 52.
Right.
Like, you still have, based off American standards, you still have easily 25 years left. That is such a stupid amount of time left to live and pursue anything you want. Like, you could go from sitting in your office to literally being a doctor in 10 years or doing anything, so that's the other thing on the flip side of it is I hear so many people say, I wish when I was your age. I'm like, how old are you? They're like, 52. I'm like, say you die at 80, like you have 28 years to become a photographer,
right?
To learn how to do a podcast,
right?
To literally to do anything. I'm like, that is such a long time that I think people just get so in their heads. And people are so much more capable of doing more than they know they're capable of doing.
Well, I think on top of that, too, it's just, people can be more successful even after the age of 50. Most of the successful people
is after that.
Yeah. They make more of their money after the age of 50.
Warren Buffett wasn't a billionaire until after 50.
Right. There you have it, and I can tell you, and I know you probably feel the same way. That first million is really, really hard to make.
It's the hardest.
You know what I'm saying? It is. It's a struggle. It's harder. The second million gets a little bit easier.
Yep. Snowball.
You know what I'm saying? And then it gets easier and easier and easier and stuff. But you got to be able to grind and get there first.
And most people, one of my quotes, someone else may have said it, but I've never heard it from them, that I always say is, what I've learned is everyone wants the wealth, no one wants the work. Like everyone, everyone says, how can I have a house like that? Or how can I make this much a year? But none of those people are saying, like, what can I start doing to improve myself to get there?
Mm-hmm.
What can I start learning to get, like, everyone wants the money, but they don't want the process that it took to get there. They want the wealth, but they don't want the work. And I've been very fortunate enough to know a lot of highly successful people. Some of the ones we've already named on this podcast, yourself included. And all of them, 100% of those people are the hardest working, most grinding, most hustling people. If it's Jon Jones, I'm at his house in Albuquerque. He's in his garage training, and it's like 1 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Right.
Like, I've never met a successful person who's like, dude, I got there off luck, man. Like, I'm just super lucky. I've never met that person.
Right.
And no one likes that answer, though. I'm like, you want to be successful? Work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and constantly improve yourself throughout that, and in 10 years you'll be absurdly successful. And I've never known anyone that has actually done that and wasn't super successful.
Right.
Just no one wants the time, no one wants the work. And I heard this good quote that I think is so true, and I'm sure you'll agree. And they said, the problem in America is most people overestimate what they can do in a year, and those same people greatly underestimate what they can do in 10 years.
Right. That's right.
So we want, like, all right, how can I be a millionaire? Phil, tell me on this podcast, tell all your listeners, what can they do to be a millionaire in the next year?
Right.
It's so hard,
Right.
but that's what everyone wants.
First of all, wake up. Wake up. I always say the hardest thing, okay, to do is to show up.
Yep.
You know what I
would
mean?
agree.
You got to show up. No matter what it is that you're going out, whatever it is you're doing, I don't care what your life is like, but you got to show up.
That's
and when
half.
you show up, you got to show out.
Yeah.
You know, you got to say what makes me different than everybody else. What makes me a better painter?
Yep.
What makes me a better plumber?
Like my
You know what
dog
I'm
stuff,
saying?
my
Yeah,
videos,
exactly.
I used that as my
Exactly.
in. What's your in your niche?
100%.
You know, what can you capitalize on that the other painters aren't doing, the other, cosmetologists aren't doing,
Right.
the other hairdressers? Like, find something unique that sets you apart and double, triple, quadruple down on that. I really like that quote. Most people overestimate what they can do in a year and greatly 10 years. You can be a billionaire in 10 years. Literally.
Yeah.
Literally in 10 years, you can be a billionaire.
That's right.
That's so much time. But in a year's really not that much time, So one thing I like tell people when they ask me is I say every day, I can show you in my phone. One of the things I do is I set a checklist for my day. I'll say Tuesday, and I'll say, respond to this email, and I'll go to the gym, jujitsu, stretch. I literally have it. WamBam podcast. I literally have it in my phone. I'll show you guys at the end. So I create a checklist every day. Say, these are my objectives of today. These are my goals that I have to get through today. And why? And I learned that isn't a me thing. I learned that, and weirdly enough, an audio book I listened to about time management. And what that does is it gives you a very visual kind of self-accountability.
Right.
It's easy to be like, I should go to the gym today or tomorrow. I need to go to the gym. But then you wake up, and we all know you have every excuse not to. Your shoulder hurts, you slept bad, you're hungry, you got to pick someone else. Like the excuse, and I don't say the reasons. I very specifically say the excuses.
Of course.
Are very easy to keep going.
Very small few people out there eliminate the excuses and find a solution.
It's tough.
It is tough. But let me tell you
for
what.
me sometimes.
But you know what? You and I understand the difference of quitting and not quitting.
Correct.
There's no such thing, because when you quit, you're done.
Yeah.
You're finished.
It's done.
There's no other ending.
Yeah.
That's it.
That is
you know
the
what I'm saying?
ending. Yeah.
So it's like, you know what? No matter what happens, that ain't ever going to be a piece of my life.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And stuff. And, you've obviously shown that in just your short time and age and stuff. I do want to talk real quick about your Off Leash K9 and your brand that you put together, the locations that you have and stuff. How can people find you and stuff? And tell a little bit about your services and stuff. Because I think when sometimes people hear about dog training, they think they're going to PetSmart and that guy or girl is going to do a class and set it up. You do something way different, because my dog's been through it too. And he's the best dog I've ever had in my life, and stuff. So tell the viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you can find us at offleashk9training.com. Just off leash, the letter K, the number 9, training.com. You can go find a location near me, type in your zip code, and you can pull up the location that's closest to you. And we kind of have some core programs. Like, our most popular program is our 2-week board and train program. That's where you drop your dog off to a trainer. We keep that dog for 2 weeks, so that dog's living with the trainer for 2 weeks, and it's just pretty much its immersion program. From the time that dog wakes up in the morning till they go to bed, they're training, they're working on something, they're healing around Destin here, they're at Destin Commons, healing around people, healing around distractions. Then we go take them to Pier Park the next day, distractions, people, noises, objects, surfaces, textures, different elevations, just a complete immersive program. And really, that's unbiasedly, I would tell people that's the best way to go. And really, in any form, not just dog training. If you said, hey, I want to lose a lot of weight, one option, because we do offer private lessons, that's certainly an option, and we'll talk about that in a second. But if I really wanted to lose weight, or I really wanted to get good at jujitsu, I would say, hey, Henner Gracie, hey, Heron Gracie, hey, Holla Gracie, hey, one of those guys, can I live with you for a month? And we just do jujitsu like morning to evening. And at the end of that month, how good are you going to be? Versus saying, I'm going to do a private class in jujitsu every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Like,
that makes sense.
You're
man.
greatly expediting the results.
I'm so glad you said that, because there have been people before that said, I don't want my dog to go away from home for 2 weeks.
Correct.
They freak out about that. Like, I want my dog at home.
Yep.
I want to make sure he or she's okay and stuff. But what you just said hits it right in the head, man. And you're right.
Yep.
If you live with somebody and you're following their footsteps, what better way to learn?
You're just the dogs. They don't, as I always say, they don't know any better. It's like, we're going on a walk. They know they're going to be in a heel. Like that verse. And to the flip side, private lessons, just like with a trainer, just like jiu-jitsu, just like anything else, is very, very beneficial for sure. But the thing I tell clients when they call and say, we always hear this, we're debating between your private lessons or your board and train. Which one would you recommend? That's probably the most common question we get. And I think everyone assumes I'm going to say, oh, our board and train, because that's by far the most expensive program, just because your dog's living with a trainer for 2 weeks versus one private lesson a week. But what I actually tell people, and it's the most honest answer I can give anyone, is if you know for a fact that you're going to spend 45 minutes to an hour a day training with your dog, I would say do private lessons. It's 1 lesson a week for 4 weeks for our basic obedience. But if you know you have the time, you're a stay-at-home mom, you're a dad who works from home. Yes, Nick, I have the time to work with my dog an hour a day, every day for those 4 weeks in between lessons. I would say do that. And you're going to have incredible results, because essentially you're now doing 7 hours a week,
right?
28 hours in a month. But to the flip side, I tell those same people, but if you know, well, I get home from work late, my wife works, then we got to go home, then the kids got soccer, that's a lot. Then I tell them you would be wasting time by doing private lessons. Because when you do private lessons, it's heavily reliant on you putting in work, practicing, repping between those private lessons.
Right.
So I say, if you know you have the time, save money and do private lessons. If you know you don't have that time, you would be wasting money by doing private lessons and do the board and train. Right. And the analogy I use is just like, a personal trainer is no different. If I work with you, I know you've worked with some personal trainers once a week, and you say, oh, well, the week in between our sessions, I eat whatever I want, and generally I never leave the couch, then he'd tell you you're wasting your time.
Right.
1 hour a week isn't enough to get you in shape.
That's right. You got to follow through.
But if he says, I offer a program where you can live with me, I'll make the 3 meals for you, I'll do the juicing for you.
Hence the Biggest Loser,
exactly.
or Juice Me, right? Yeah.
And they get amazing results because they're immersed in it.
Yep.
So either way, your dog kind of needs to be immersed, whether you're paying the trainer to immerse them or you're immersing them. Either way, there has to be some consistency.
Yeah. Man, there's so much here, and I just can't thank you enough again for giving us the time and stuff. As we wind this down and stuff, I want you to say anything you want to the viewers out there, anything that can help them, inspire them. As they see this show's about ordinary people do extraordinary things, you're just proof of that. You're just an ordinary guy.
Very ordinary.
And you know what? You're very wealthy. You've done very, very well. You're very, very successful, but yet you don't forget where you come from, and you still ride that line. What would you like to say to the viewers? One last thing.
The best piece of advice I could give people in 2023, and this is the piece of advice I literally give my friends, Phil's heard me say on a daily basis, is the average American spends 3 hours a day on social media. That's 3 hours a day the average American spends social media. Ask the average American how much hours a day they spend listening to an audiobook on finance, on leadership, on better communication.
Or podcast.
On podcasting, on building a brand, ask those people, how many of those people are willing to spend 3 hours a day, to do those things. And one of the things I always tell people is get off social media. Like a hack I used, I set a screen time so I can only be on social media an hour a day. And now I fill those extra 2 hours that I used to be on, or that extra hour, with I dedicate 30 minutes every morning to an audiobook. Every morning, that's part of my checklist, 30-minute audiobook. So use some of that time to improve yourself. Stop, scrolling through Instagram. As I say, most people scroll away their success. So stop scrolling through Instagram and spend those 2-3 hours to invest in yourself, to learn a new skill, to be a better communicator, be a better leader, be a better dad, be a better husband, be a better wife, and try to learn through audiobooks. I do audiobooks as I'm driving a lot versus reading. But either one, books, just do something with that time to improve yourself versus mindlessly scrolling through social media, literally scrolling away your life. So that would be my best advice.
Awesome. There you have it, folks. You heard it straight from Nick White, right from his mouth. Stop worrying about everybody else's life and start worrying about yours. As I've always said, if your life was a movie, would it be worth watching? You got to ask yourself. And if not, then stop being ordinary and start being extraordinary. You know what? Stay positive and keep texting negative. This is your boy WamBam, and I'm out. This podcast was brought to you by Cost Plus Processing, the leader in merchant processing. Please call them at 1-855-391-9190 and find out why they are the leader in merchant processing.